majority of bleeding encountered in first aid is not as serious as it may initially seem. Looks can be deceiving, and it may be that the patient has not lost as much blood as you believe. In this demonstration, a pint of fake blood is poured onto a concrete floor. You'll see how easily it spreads, and how you may think that there is far more than a pint lost from the body. It is worth remembering that an adult can lose a pint of blood without serious consequences, as is demonstrated during blood donation. However, it is also worth mentioning how easily a pint of blood can be lost into a porous surface, in this case gravel, but it could be grass or sand. In this situation, you may underestimate blood loss. Therefore, simply deciding how serious the bleed is based on the size of the blood loss is not overly reliable. There are occasions when bleeding can be so severe as to place the life of the casualty in immediate risk. This is known as life-threatening bleeding or catastrophic hemorrhage. This type of bleeding can kill in minutes if left unattended, and therefore it's crucial to be able to spot this. If when you view a wound, blood pours in a stream from the wound, or it spurts in time with the heartbeat of the patient, this is likely to be serious enough as to place their life in immediate risk, and the treatment of it takes priority over everything else. Life-threatening bleeding can be controlled using the techniques of direct pressure, indirect pressure, elevation, and packing, and equipment such as trauma dressings, hemostatic dressings, and tourniquets. We will now detail the stepwise approach to the treatment of a life-threatening bleed on a limb. On arrival with the patient, you notice that they've suffered an injury which has resulted in significant ongoing blood loss. Whilst you place on protective barriers, such as gloves and eye protection, get the casualty to apply direct pressure to their own wound and attempt to elevate the limb in an effort to minimise blood loss. When you have your protective barriers on and a trauma dressing to hand, ask the patient to remove their direct pressure, and you briefly need to examine the wound in an attempt to find the bleeding point, usually a cut or torn artery or vein. Take the pad of your dressing and apply through the pad firm finger pressure to the bleeding point inside the wound. Keep this pressure in place for several minutes in an attempt to allow the beginning of a clot to form. Now tightly bandage the trauma dressing in place, maximising the benefit of the elastic bandage to increase pressure through the wound. Seal the top and bottom of the pad first, and then some trauma dressings have a pressure bar that you pass the bandage through and double back to increase pressure over the wound even more. Once bandaged, secure the end and raise into elevation. This may be enough to control bleeding, but if you find that after a few minutes blood is seen to ooze steadily from the first dressing, you will need to apply a second dressing on top of the first, aiming for even more pressure. Return the limb to an elevated position if possible. If, after 2 substantial trauma dressings, blood is still being lost from the limb, you will need to consider a tourniquet. If at all possible,
lights, not tourniquets.